Hello, this is another Crochet with Cris tutorial. I am your host, Cris. This is the second video in a series to create this granny style hexagon beret. If you have not watched the first video, then I would suggest doing so because we've created this piece in the first video, and now we're moving forward to create the squares that are going around the outside. I do have permission from Sue at headhuggers.org to do the tutorial on this video, so if you are wanting to do this pattern, I'd say go back to the first video and then check the link down in the doobly-doo for a link to the pattern. Headhuggers.org is a charitable project which gathers crafted hats and head huggers and different beadies and things, and they send them to facilities that treat individuals that are, they're on chemo treatment, for cancer, and allows the people to worry less about not having hair and focus more on getting better. So I want to go ahead and get started to save some time, but again, if you did not watch the first video, I would highly suggest doing so because it is, again, that piece. The square piece is made in a similar fashion to how we did the hexagon, with using the spaces between the posts for our clusters of 6 double crochets. However, of course, instead of working with 6 points for a square, we're only going to be working with 4. We are still using our J hook, and to start the pattern out with the center, I am using that Painted Desert, that variegated yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and do my slip stitch. Just a reminder, this video is not for the beginner who does not know the stitches. You need to know the stitches, which are going to be primarily the double crochet, the slip stitch, and the chain. I do have videos about how to do those out. So if you're not familiar with how to do the stitches, I would highly suggest reviewing those videos and not continuing on with this video until you are familiar. So with that said, I'm going to start out the same as I did the hexagon and do a chain 5. There's 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go around and I'm going to slip stitch in the first chain that I created to create a ring. This is the same exact thing I did with the hexagon. Now the difference with the hexagon is here, well, not exactly here. We are going to chain 2, and that counts as a double crochet, but instead of doing 17 double crochets in the ring, we're only going to do 11. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's 1. Get that little tail out of the way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Obviously, not quite as tight a center as the hexagon. We didn't have to put as many in. So, just like the hexagon, I'm going to go ahead and get my hook in the top of that chain 2 that I started with and slip stitch to join into a good circle. Just like the hexagon, we're going to chain 2, and we're not working in the top of the stitches. We're working in the space between the posts. So what I'm going to do is kind of pull this out to see the post that my chain 2 is over, and I'm going to go into the space immediately to the left of that and put 5 double crochets, and that creates a cluster of 6 because we are counting that chain 2 as a double crochet. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's our first cluster of 6. Now we're going to count 3 posts over, and the next cluster of 6 is going to go in this space between the double crochets. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, so there's that. We have 2 clusters. And now we're going to count over 3 more posts and do another cluster of 6 in that space. So between every cluster you should have 3 double crochets between on the base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're almost done with our square. Let's go ahead. We're going to do another cluster of 6. We're going to count 3 posts over, and we're going to do a cluster of 6 in that space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to take and slip stitch into the chain 2 that we started with to join. Wonderful. Alright, now we're ready to jump up and start doing row 3. Just like I did, I modified on the hexagon. The instructions just say to do 2 slip stitches into the next 2 stitches, and this is the only time you actually do work in the stitches. So I'm going to do the 2 slip stitches that they suggest. There's 1, 2. But I'm going to do one more, and this one is going to go into the space between the 3. There's the 3 posts. So I'm going to put my slip stitch, not in a stitch, but in the space between the posts. And like before, what that does is it brings me to the middle. It doesn't start my chain over on the side, so it looks a little off. It also helps square up the shape. So now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to put 5 double crochets in that space between the posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is our first cluster of 6 at a corner. Now this is the first row for the squares where we have the side space, the space created between the corners. So we're going to put 3 double crochet in there. Same as we did for the hexagon, except now instead of having 6 points, we only have 4 to worry about. So the squares go a little faster than the hexagon. So now that we've created the side cluster, we're now creating a corner cluster, which means you count the 3 posts over and then do your 6 double crochets in that space between the posts. I sometimes feel like I sound like a broken record because I want to make sure everybody understands it. If you don't understand it, if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're on my blog, leave a comment. I do not mind coming back and editing things like this to help make a better understanding of the tutorial. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, that's what I'm here for. I want to make patterns easier for people to read. So now we're on another side, so we're going to put 3 double crochets in that side space. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the squares go so much faster. And now we're back at a corner, which is a cluster of 6, so we're going to do the same old drill. Go to the 3rd post over and put 6 double crochets in that space between the posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're at a side, so we're going to do the 3 double crochets in here. 1, 2, 3. Now we're at a corner, so we're doing the cluster of 6 in that space between the double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That leaves us with one more side cluster. So put 3 double crochet in there. 1, heard my hook squeak. 2, 3. Now we're at the end, so we're going to slip stitch over here at the top of the chain 2 that we started with to join. And this is the last row that we're doing with this color, so we're going to cut this and tie off our end and switch over to the contrasting color, which for me is that medium thyme. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my hook, and then in that same corner, this is where I tied off, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to count over 3 posts, and in that 3 posts, that's where we're going to put our hook, and go ahead and slip stitch that on to join it to the piece, maybe. Move it over. And now that it's attached to the yarn piece, the square, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to put 5 double crochet in that same space that we joined our yarn into. I found that doing the jump, tying your work off and doing the jump is really just a lot easier than worrying about whether or not if you get your color changed correctly. I'm a little bit of a worrywart when it comes to that. This is the 4th double crochet, here's the 5th one. So that gives us our cluster of 6 on that corner. And now, just like the hexagon, we're going to work 3 double crochets in each of the side spaces, and then a cluster of 6 here in the corner in that space. And we're going to go all the way around doing that. So I think you can go ahead and do that on your own. I'll go ahead and end this video. And then what you need to do is, I would highly suggest to weave your tails in, and you need to make 6 squares total. So you're going to need 1 hexagon middle, which was the first video, 6 of these squares, and then we'll be ready to start stitching the top piece together to start forming our hat. So I want you to go ahead, finish the pattern around. Remember, it's a cluster of 6 in the corners and then the 3 DC in each of the side spaces. And then I will meet you back here in the 3rd video, and you will have 6 squares in a hexagon and excitement to finish off your pattern. Alright, well, maybe not excitement, but we will be moving forward in the next video, so make sure you have all your stuff together and ready to go. I will see you then. Thanks again, and happy hooking!